Hey guys, this is my second newsletter for 2024. We're calling it the newsletter of the second quarter because the second quarter of our year is over. We're halfway through 2024. It's July 2nd right now. Crazy. And if you've been following along, you know that one of my goals for 2024 was to produce 4 newsletters, one each quarter. I do them by video, so you can see my face if you're someone who likes to see and listen. Or if you'd prefer to read, just scroll on down and all the exact same information will be written up below this video, and there will be links that you can click through for more information on each of the topics. So I like to provide it both ways. Choose your own adventure. Today I want to talk about a few things. Nothing crazy. Well, actually, zoning is a bit crazy. Please know that these glasses are driving me nuts. They keep sliding off of my face, and I will continue to adjust them 400 times, potentially, in this 20-minute video. Okay, so I want to talk about some local stats about the pace of our real estate market here in Campbell River. I want to talk about new zoning changes that came from our provincial government that are crazy huge. I want to talk about changes to capital gain tax and what that means. A lot of people don't understand what capital gain tax is. I want to talk a little bit about mortgage rates because they've come down a bit, which is exciting. And also, the last thing is there's a Greener Homes Initiative program that's not new. It's not new, but I wasn't paying attention to it. I don't know why, but now I am, and I think it's really cool, and I want to share it with you. So those are the things that I want to bring to you today. Again, scroll on down if you'd rather read. And please, I always love to hear your feedback. What did you find interesting? Did you learn anything? It just helps me know if these are helpful and of service to my clientele, which is the whole point of doing them. Okay, so first up, I want to talk about statistics locally, but the stats need a bit of a disclaimer, in my personal opinion. I think as realtors especially, we have a lot of power to influence how people make decisions about their real estate, what they own, what they buy, etc., how much they spend, how fast they move through the process. And I understand that it's my responsibility to just be careful with the stats that I share, or maybe how I share them, because I can go into this big bank of statistics and I can pull whatever I want to make things look a certain way. I could pull stats that make you feel like the prices are coming down and you should sell fast before they come down further. I could pull stats that show, that there's lots of houses being listed on the market and make sure you should price it competitively. I could show you stats that, whatever, the list goes on, right? And so I really try to give a general feel, but I also think it's my responsibility to share that bit of a disclaimer. Like, stats are very relative to the information that we're looking at. This is my 18th year in the industry, sorry. And the markets, I've worked in so many different markets, both locally and in the Kootenays of BC. So yeah, I just have seen a lot of stuff. And this market feels very like average, kind of like the old days. Things aren't flying off the shelves. When priced accurately and well prepared, homes are still selling in a reasonable amount of time. Takes about 6 weeks on average. All of those things are very normal when we look back beyond the last few years. And I think that's a very reasonable way to look at things. There's nothing alarming here that I see. So also, the first couple statistics are specifically about single-family residential homes in Campbell River. So I haven't included condos or townhomes in the first couple statistics because I work primarily with single-family detached houses. I watch that market, most closely, and condos and townhomes are always following the same trends. So that's just my preference. When I looked back, I looked at how many properties were listed during the month of June. So that doesn't mean that they came on the market in June. It means that in June, that's how many properties were active. Some of them may have been listed in June. Some may have been listed 2 months before June and are still on the market, right? So in 2022, there were 164 single-family detached homes listed. In 2023, there were 147, so pretty similar. This year, there are 155, pretty similar. So our inventory of single-family detached homes is pretty consistent, this June as it was to the 2 years prior. The second thing I looked at was sales volume. So sales volume is basically a total number, like how many millions of dollars of real estate changed hands during a specific time, right? So when I first did the stats, it looked like our sales volume was so far down, but it's not that different. It is definitely down. Okay, let's look at it this way. Maybe I'm going to actually attach a little picture of what I'm looking at if you want to scroll down. So I'm looking month to month. So in January, in year 2022, 2023, and this year, how much changed hands? February, March, April, May, June. And so when I look at all of those numbers, I see that this is a year where we do have less volume, less sales volume, so less transactions than the last couple of years. And I think that any realtor who's working actively in the market right now is feeling that for sure. I can also look at the number of units that sold. So not just how much money changed hands, but how many actual properties were sold. So for June, there were 21 less sales this year than there were last year, which is a lot. And for May, there were 35 less sales than last year in that month, which is a lot. So our spring market, we definitely had less transactions as a town than we had last year, which I'm not surprised to see. I feel that in the pace of like my phone ringing and inquiry. So that's fair. That gives a bit of validation for all of us realtors out there. I doubt any realtors are watching this except maybe Steph. But that gives validation that like things are definitely slower for sure. So I'm going to share those numbers down below instead of reading them out to you because it will all get lost in the wash of my voice. So scroll down if that's interesting to you. The third stat, oh no, that's not true. The third stat I was going to share is the number of sales. So yes, active listings I told you about, the sales volume, and also the number of sales I'm going to share in writing down below. Okay, cool. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is Bill 44. So, oh my goodness. Okay, our provincial government has decided I think they were like hoping or wishing that a lot of cities and municipalities were going to step up and make changes to their local bylaws about suites, carriage homes, having a house, building a duplex on an R1, meaning a single home zoned lot. They were looking for cities and municipalities to step in and make changes, and that wasn't happening. And so the provincial government came in, and I'm sure you know, but like municipal government can be overridden, right, by decisions made provincially. So the province came in and said, bam, we're going to pass a bill called Bill 44, and like, screw your local municipal zoning bylaw. We're going to override it with this new one. And so they didn't like blanket zone the province. It's not quite like that, but they gave rules that needed to be honored in everybody's local zoning. So Campbell River on June 4th announced that they have taken all of our normal like residentially zoned lands, right? Parcels of land, homes, etc. And they have lumped them all into one zoning bylaw called RI. Okay, and again, in the body of this newsletter, you can click through and see what that means in small print and in detail. But the gist is that all residential lots in Campbell River are now permitted to have 3 or 4 units, depending on the lot size. This is huge. Think of oh my God, I have so much to say about this. Think of all the vacant land. Like, okay, where do I start? If anyone has purchased vacant land in the last 5 years that has been zoned for more than just a single family home, say you bought a lot on Alder that's zoned for a fourplex, you would have paid a premium beyond what it would have been zoned if it was R1. And that premium you paid is like for nothing now, because the same lot next door, which is zoned R1, is now also allowed to have a fourplex. So like that kind of hurts. Ouch. For some of those people, there are other people who have, spent lots of money, tens of thousands of dollars, rezoning and surveying and going through all of these hoops to be allowed to build a legal carriage home or a legal basement suite in their property. And that was all for nothing because now everyone's allowed. There's so many things. My heart really goes out to our local city planning department, actually. And I can just imagine how much of a like shakeup that is when we have like official community planning, we have written zoning bylaws, we have mapping, we have all of these things that function, and all of these humans using their brains to collaborate and come up with how we want our city to function and how we want our city to be shaped and where we want density and where we don't. And that's all just gone, it's just gone to the wind. And I'm not against this new zoning or this bill at all. I'm not against it. I'm just saying, wow, what a change to be thrown into. And I don't know. I just think it's wild. And I'm actually always so impressed by our city planning department and how available they are for questions. Anyways, moving on. So, for example, I own a house. Let's say I want to lift my house, because I do. I want to lift my house, and as part of that lift, on the floor that I would build underneath what's currently there, I could have a suite, right? This would, as long as I followed the building code and the permitting process of the city of Kamp River, I would be allowed to do that. And then I could also build 2 more units on my land. So then maybe I want to build like a duplex, or maybe I want to build a shop with a suite above it, and the suite has 2 units. I could do all of that on my little, residential house in town. It's crazy. The parking requirements have changed. The lot coverage has changed. So previously, I was only allowed to cover 35% of my land with buildings. Now I'm allowed to cover 50% of my land with buildings. We're allowed to build taller buildings now. So many things have changed. The whole idea behind that is to allow for more housing. So we obviously have a housing crisis in this province. We know this. And the province is trying to open up pathways for that housing crisis to be resolved or positively impacted. I think it's really interesting what that might do to like the affordability of real estate, because now it makes everyone's real estate, in theory, more valuable, because we can gather more rental income out of the same land, same home, the same chunk of dirt, right? So that's really interesting. I would say buy land. buy land right now. Buy real estate in general. My goodness. That's my opinion. Anyways, so that's going to be really interesting. What else did I want to say about that? Well, gosh, I actually have quite a few like lingering questions that can't seem to be answered, which is a little bit, I wouldn't say it's frustrating, but it makes it hard to answer other people's questions. So I attended a forum of like 1,300 realtors in BC, and we listened to people presenting, and there were so many questions that can't yet be answered, even by the people who are paying close attention. So some of them are, can strata rules override Bill 44? So for example, in Kamp River, we have 1170 Evergreen, which is a lovely bareland strata complex, but it has narrow roads, and it already has like a bit of parking trouble sometimes if a home owns more than, one vehicle, because you have street parking and you have driveway parking and things would get crazy. So for example, if those properties are allowed to have suites, can the strata pass a voted bylaw that says no suites because we don't have the parking? Or would that strata rule not stand up against the Bill 44 if the owner wanted to fight it? That's one of my questions. I wonder what the DCC costs from the development cost charges will be from the city. Because I wouldn't be surprised if they need to recover some of the money in having to quickly change all of the zoning, right? So I wonder what that process looks like if you do want to go ahead and hook in another house. Let's say you built a shop with a carriage home that needs sewer water. What does that cost look like? I wonder what the city will be charging. A lot of people were asking, what kind of control does the city still have? But now that the cities have started announcing the new bylaws, I think those questions are mostly answered. Septic and well properties are exempt, which is important because septic services and well services, if we have, if density changes really quickly in those properties, that's potentially like a water table issue. So just a side note. Those are some of the questions that are still kind of flying around. A lot of people are wondering if the banks and lenders will be creating like new lending products that are a bit more available for people who want to take their existing home and build, like I said, shop with a suite or a detached or attached rental unit. I talked with a mortgage broker this morning who said that they are working on new projects. They're basically line of credits that give you access to your equity, which we kind of have always had access to. I'm really curious about the lending ratio. Like, will we be allowed to borrow more of our equity than usual to be able to do those types of things to our properties? Time will tell. Okay, so that's probably all I need to ramble on about for Bill 44. I could really talk about that a lot. I know you guys knew it was coming because I was preaching about it all winter, but now that it's here, it feels a bit surreal, and I feel like it came really quickly. That's already in effect, like now, since June 4th, so almost for the last month. Crazy. Okay, next up, capital gain tax charges. So for anyone who doesn't know what capital gains are, let's say I own a rental property, and when I bought it for $200,000, and now I'm selling it for $600,000. There's a gain of $400,000. Then yes, there needs to be accounting of like, what did it cost to own it, maintain it, travel to it to check on it, have it managed. Like, all of those costs are obviously written off against that $400,000 gain, but somewhere there's a gain. Let's say my total gain is $300,000. Until now, half of that, 50% of it, of the $300,000 of the gain, so $150,000 would be added to my yearly income the year that I sold it, and I would pay personal income tax on whatever I earned in my life that year plus the $150,000, gain. So that would have the potential to really impact my income tax for that year, right? Not only would that gain be income taxed, but all of my income for that year would be income taxed at the new rate that the gain would put me into by being income of that year. So the important number there is 50%. So 50% of the gain is added to my income until now. Now 67% of the gain is added to my income in the same story. So the rate has gone up, that gain, that $300,000 gain I just walked you through, the tax rate of that hasn't necessarily changed, but the amount of the $300,000 that is considered gain has changed from 50% to 67%, which is of course going to change the tax rate based on each individual's personal income. So this is a question for an accountant. If you have a property that isn't your personal residence that you're looking to sell, I think the change is already in effect. So too late to rush before that happens. It's already here. I'm pretty sure I should have checked before I pressed film, but that's okay. But yes, there are ways. Some people own holding companies and corporations that they, wiggle things around in. There's all kinds of different ways. I have a really great accountant if you need somebody, but that's a big change. And I did see some people selling before that came into effect in hopes that they would not have to experience that 17% change in how much of the gain would be taxed. So that's a big deal. I am going to make a personal prediction that I don't even want to make. I really do think that our federal government is going to try and I would say in the next 3 years. I know there's going to be an election and such, but if things continued the way that they were with who's in party now, I really feel like our personal real estate sales of our primary residences are going to be capital gain taxed too, or some kind of taxed. We're seeing flipping tax come in. We're seeing changes to capital gain tax, and it would be a huge cash pull for the government, right? If they started taxing basically our equity every time we sell our primary residence. That would change how many people bother selling their real estate. That would change how often people move up in the real estate market. That would greatly impact our sales volume in Canada for real estate, for sure, in a very big way. And aside to that is this is my 18th year. So I have seen working class Canadians, well, I've been in BC the whole time, so working class, BC residents use real estate transactions to elevate their their family's situation in so many ways. Like, oh, you have children that want to go to university and you didn't save enough money. Okay, let's downsize you into a less expensive home and use some of your equity. Oh, your kids have student loans and you're in your 60s and you want to help them because they want to start a business. Let's cash you out. Or, oh, you're 30 years old and one of you wants to become a stay-at-home parent, but you need some cash and you haven't saved enough money for this. Why don't you renovate the house you're in and we'll sell it and you can take some of that money and use it for your family income and move into something that needs work again. Like, I have seen many, many, many situations where people use their primary residence as a tool to be able to like survive how expensive it is to live. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. I think it would be a very big deal if they decide to do that. And I hope I'm wrong. Next, Greener Homes Initiative. I need water. Hold on. I'm talking so much. Okay, Greener Homes Initiative. Here's the moral of the story. I don't know about you, but I get overwhelmed with too many details if something is new information for me. So there are grants where the government will give you back some of the money that you've invested into making your home more energy efficient. Okay? There are provincial and federal grants. But a lot of these grants can't be applied for unless you've had an energy rating assessment, an energy assessment done on your property before you made any changes. So I didn't know this, and I had a bunch of insulation work done to my own home, and I did not have an energy assessment done beforehand, which is devastating because now I can't receive any of those grants that I would have been able to receive had I done the assessment first. Idiot. I didn't know. So anyways, this process that I'm going through right now is I'm going to pay this man $800 to do an energy assessment on my house. The government is going to give me a grant for $600 to pay for that assessment. So it really costs me $200 eventually, but I have to pay for all of it up front. Okay? He's going to make a bunch of recommendations on how I can make my property more energy efficient. He for sure is going to hate my baseboard heat and ask me to put in a heat pump. I guarantee it. I'm sure he will suggest solar panels and some window replacements. In his assessment, he will show how much my energy efficiency would improve based on each one of those items. And so that's great. Then when I'm done doing whatever work I decide to do, he comes back, does an ending assessment. And then once we prove how much of an improvement there has been, you apply for the grants, and the grants pay you back for some of the money you invested into these energy upgrades. Okay? That's one thing. That's the grant section. The other section I did not know about is that the government will lend you up to $40,000 to make those energy improvements interest-free for 10 years. So just consider solar panels. Those solar panels, once they're up and going, are going to fund most of your power needs for your property, even if it's only half. It's more like 70% in most cases. But anyways, those are going to be paid off in maybe 3 years, and you don't even actually have to finish paying them off for 10. So there are some serious benefits to having a look at this. Like, I personally am really interested in the solar panels and a heat pump. So I'm pretty excited about that. I love the idea of borrowing money for free. Like, yeah, sure, I have to pay it back, but it's no interest. Instead of using my line of credit, instead of using my cash, I can just borrow it with no interest for 10 years. So if you've been considering making any kind of energy improvements to your home in heating, in windows, in insulation, in solar installs, just like pause. And I can absolutely connect you with this man who I'm working with to get through this assessment so that you can apply for those grants. And if you don't want to use your own money, he can also help you apply for the loan. I thought that was really cool. I think that's all that I wanted to tell you guys about. I noticed the city started taking action on those mini markets that we talked about a couple of months ago in my first newsletter of the year down at Spirit Square. So that's pretty cute, pretty exciting. I just have such a crush on our little town lately. I always do, but I think I'm still kind of vibing on Canada Day fireworks last night and how cute it was to see everyone with their lawn chairs and their blankets and a beer or a tea or whatever they're drinking with their families, all cuddled up watching the fireworks. And the Quadra Ferry was like out on the water honking its little horn, and it just kills me. It's so sweet. So I'm going to leave it with that. We talked about some stats. The market's doing fine. Sales volume is down, yes. There's still lots, to do and sell. If you are a realtor listening to this and you feel depressed about the pace of the market, I just want to invite you to go do a search and see with the stats how much money changed hands in real estate so far in 2024. Do the rough math on how much commission has been earned in our town in 2024, and then go to work, because there's lots to do. There are lots of people needing representation, and there's money everywhere. So everything's fine, guys. It's fine. I think that's it. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your summer, and I'm going to go enjoy the sunshine.